Welcome to this week's installment of Have You Heard? We're taping this on Wednesday, February 12th, 2020. We're here with Nichols hockey head coach Parker Burgess, who's in his fifth season in Dudley. And the timing of this podcast really couldn't be better, Parker. Coming off one of the biggest wins of the season, probably the biggest, up at UNE this past weekend. But we want to start the podcast by where the season started. And it clearly was not what you envisioned, what fans and alumni envisioned. You started out with 9 straight losses. So not that we want to draw this by any point,
no worries.
But let's just talk about the start of the season and just kind of what went on during that time.
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously a pretty challenging time and something that wasn't something that we necessarily planned for, that you envision getting into the start of the year. Obviously, we knew as a staff, and I think the kids knew that our schedule, the first 10 games of the year was going to be one of, if not the hardest in the country. And playing, the conference, and we don't control it. We knew we were going to a really good tournament up in Buffalo with Adrian and Buff State and Manhattanville, and you start the year off with Adrian, who's number 5 in the country at the time, and played them hard, and you have a couple tough losses up there, and again out of our control. But you look at our schedule after that, and it's Salve, Endicott, Curry, Endicott.
It's all the cream of the crop in the season.
It is, it's all the top teams, and there's when you play those type of teams, you can't get away with making mistakes. And so everything becomes magnified. And I think it was at times a crisis of confidence when, we started the year, up at Norwich, a team that was in the national championship game last year. We had an exhibition game up there and played them really well and beat them 3-1 in their own rink, with their full roster. So you kind of have high hopes. That sets the standard. Like, hey, we're a really good team, and we're expecting big things. And I think with the group we had returning and coupled with some of the freshmen we were bringing in, we did have very high hopes, and we still do. And it just didn't go our way. And like I said, it was a crisis of confidence at times. And it just seemed like everything was magnified, and bad things led to worse things. But, credit goes to our players. Even though, we were 0-3 and 0-5 and 0-7 and 0-9, every week, every Monday, they showed up for practice, and they were enthusiastic and had energy and excitement, and they wanted to learn and get better. There wasn't one time really where we had any, implosion or finger pointing or, self-doubt. We knew we were going to come out of this. It was just a battle to be patient and to trust enough and stick with it long enough to see us be able to come through it. But it wasn't a lot of fun. And I know for some people, they probably questioned where we were at and what was going on. But, at the end of the day, we appreciate the people that stuck with us. And like I said, the credit goes to our leadership group and our players for sticking with it. And that's the reason we kind of came out of it.
And you guys have clearly turned it around. That's what we're going to get to, which is why this is, again, perfect timing for this podcast. But during that stretch of games, again, not that we're harping on this, was there something that you noticed, whether it's on the ice, off the ice, with the team that just wasn't clicking properly? You get in those games and you maybe get down a goal or two, or something just wasn't working that's working now? Or was it just, again, just one mistake? And
yeah. I mean, it's a combination of all the above, probably. Like, it's pretty simple. And I believe the first 8 or 9 games, we didn't score first. So every single game you're playing from behind. You're playing catch up. And there was a lot of games too, and you talk about like confidence and just and tough bounces. Like, there was a lot of those games where we were dominant in the first period, where we were out shooting, Endicott, Salve. If you look at a lot of those box scores, we're out shooting teams, 13-4, 15-4, but we're not able to get that first one. And it's great to sit there on the bench and say, hey, it's going to come. But, when it becomes a pattern, the kids are kind of gripping their sticks a little tighter. Like, we have to get the first, because if we give up that first goal, we're 0-5 when it happens. And then all of a sudden, whether it's a bad bounce or a breakdown in the D zone, that other team gets the first one. And you could feel just collectively, half the guys on the bench kind of have that, oh my goodness, it's happening again. And then your other half, your older half, the Hogan Davidsons and JB Bakers and Chevy and Vinny and those guys, they feel that collective like sigh of angst almost. And so they go out there and they try to take over themselves, and they try to do too much. They try to get that goal back, on the very next shift. And I know a lot of coaches say, you got to stick with the process and it's a 60-minute game. Well, we would give up that one goal and half the team went into a shell, and then the other half's trying to do too much, and that combination just compounds, that. So giving up the first goal was tough, and if you look at our specialty teams, neither our power play or penalty kill was very efficient in that stretch, and we weren't getting great goaltending. So like when you don't score goals, your specialty teams aren't up to the standard you need them to be. You're not getting great goaltending, and you have confidence issues. That's a pretty good recipe to struggle. And it's not a coincidence that a lot of those things have picked up and turned around, and now we're getting results.
Sure. You guys picked up your first win of the year right before the calendar turned. You went up to Franklin Pierce. Jay Narowski, who's been a member of the team for 4 years, kind of a locker room guy, heart and soul guy, gets a start because, again, the goaltending has struggled, looking to catch lightning in a bottle, and he pitched a shutout for you, and that got the guys going a little bit. Just talk about the win just to close the year. Yeah,
I mean, obviously Jay's favorite of all his teammates and of the coaching staff too. He's been here 4 years, and to see his path to how he's matured and developed and become just such a great teammate, but also an excellent goalie. I think that's one thing that gets lost is Jay came in kind of behind the 8 ball, didn't really understand maybe right off the bat what it took to play at this level and to be successful as a high-level student athlete, both in the classroom and on the ice. And
he definitely has the size for a goalie, for sure.
Yeah, a big kid, but he really dedicated himself to his nutrition and just getting into game shape and understanding like it's not just about practice, it's everyday choices and habits that are going to help you. Plus his academics, his freshman year I think was an eye-opener for him, and now he's a great student, he's a great teammate, and it was almost like a storybook. Like you couldn't have written something like that. And to be honest, I feel like this season is full of these defining moments where hopefully we're able to look back and say, hey, it wasn't maybe just one thing, but it was this collective, all these little different, you're hoping for signs or, the karma or whatever. But you look at it like the guy to get us started, to get rid of that goose egg is, so-called your 4-string goalie who's a senior. And he comes in on the road, the game before Christmas when everybody just is feeling the weight of the world, and backstops us to a 4-0 shutout win. You couldn't have been happier for him, and he won Player of the Week and Player of the Game. And again, it just, you can't write stuff like that. And it's credit to Jay, and we were just really happy for him in the moment. And it's been an excellent journey since.
So you guys pick up the win. You're now going into the Boston Landing Collegiate Invitational. It's the 4th year you've hosted. And talk a little bit about the event, what it means for the college, what it means for the program, and really just college hockey. It's really one of the premier tournaments in Division III.
Yeah, we've been very fortunate. We've had a lot of great support here at Nichols to be able to host it for 4 years now. And a lot of people put a lot of work into it. And it's been fun to see, even that tournament and that event grow into what it is. It was kind of just a startup project for us. Like, let's see if we can host a tournament in Boston. And now it has kind of developed and become one of the premier tournaments in the NCAA Division III landscape, and something we're very proud of. And obviously every year you want to win it. It's not going to happen where you win it every year, but it's a lot of fun. I think the alumni really enjoy it. I think a lot of the faculty, staff, the families that we have, obviously having players from all over North America and then Europe as well, to be able to have an event like that right after Christmas where a lot of those people can come and get to see their kids or the team play, and be in a venue like the Warrior Ice Rink there in Boston. It's turned out to be a great event and something that we enjoy, and something that Nichols as a college and as an institution should be very proud of, and I believe they are.
And I think one of the best things with this tournament is a lot of schools will host a holiday tournament, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and they may set the field up where it's their tournament, but they're going to lean it towards, this is going to be a win for us, a booster, we're going to get a trophy and put it in our display case. That hasn't been the case here. We've won it once in 4 years, and the competition has been fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, and that's part of the reason we wanted to do it is I think high-level hockey players and high-level athletes, they want to play against the best competition. And I think, yeah, it's a recruiting tool, and it's a nice perk to say, hey, we host this tournament in Boston. But if you have a cupcake field just so that you can win it, yeah, it's great. But I think what really draws the recruits, and one of the things that our players really enjoy and that our alumni enjoy, is that we're getting some of the best teams in the country to participate in it. Hobart won it this year, and they were in the Final Four last year, and we've had teams from Minnesota and NESCAC schools. We've had just great competition, and it leads to a better event. So I think that's something you'll see, in the years moving forward, is we want to have one of the premier tournaments in college hockey. You got to have some of the premier teams and programs. And so that's something we've tried to do right from the start. And maybe we would have a few more wins if we got some other teams in there, but that's not a lot of fun either. It's fun to play the best.
Maybe in the ultimate, the darkest before the dawn hits. So the tournament comes this year. You guys dropped both games. Bernathen knocks you out in the semifinals, the first round, whatever you want to call it. And then you took a tough overtime loss the next day. Was that kind of the low point of the season, was going in, you have the alumni there, and not to beat a dead horse, and we've talked about this, but just was that the toughest part of the season, was going into that after the Franklin Pierce win and having those two losses? Yeah,
that was for sure the low point, I think, for myself and for the team. And it was just we ended the first half on such a high with that win against Franklin Pierce and Jay getting the shutout and all that you almost felt, okay, things have turned for us. Like, everybody went home and kind of rejuvenated and refreshed over Christmas break and came back with a ton of enthusiasm. And the kids are very aware of what that tournament means to our program and to our alumni. So they wanted to go out on the ice and put in a good showing. And to be quite honest, we outplayed Bernathen and we outplayed St. John's, and I thought we deserved better fates in both those games. So to have an event like that with the exposure that brings, and to not get the results and feel like you deserved them, it almost was this feeling of like, is this ever going to end, or is this just our fate? And I don't want to divulge too much information, but we, like I had said before here, the kids had stuck together as a group, and we hadn't had any animosity or anything like that up until that point. And I'll never forget that Wednesday of practice that week following the Boston Landing before we went up to St. Mike's. It might have been Thursday, actually. I can't remember. It was probably our worst practice of the year. Emotions were high, tensions were high. Things kind of went a little bit sideways on us, not in a terribly bad way, but
happens in the NHL all the time. With teams.
Yeah, you just felt the tension and frustration boil over, and in a lot of those situations, I probably would have been harder on the guys, but it was almost like, it's been amazing. I was just amazed they had kept it together to that point. So for it to boil over finally, and I think that was just the culmination. And it was interesting just chatting with our leadership group and our older guys. You could see them wear it on their faces, how big of a toll this was affecting them, and the pressure they were feeling. And that's genuine care. Like, they're invested in this process, and they're invested in this program. So they knew where we were standing, and they knew what people were saying. And when I met with them, that was kind of the message. Is we know the message they relayed to me is, they said, like, hey, coach, like, we understand we're probably going through this for a reason, and that this is an experience that we're going to be able to lean on down the road, but we're ready for it to be over. And I think we all just felt that, like, we're learning lessons along the way, but we feel like we've learned them now, and let's move past it. And then I think you saw that weekend in St. Mike's, where I think it was 9-2 or whatever. It was just a release of, I think, a lot of frustration and tension that had been built up to that point. So.
And what was that like going through as a coach? I mean, you'd experienced mostly success during your time here. Was that the hardest point in your coaching career, and how did you go through that? And did you talk to the coaches, say, hey, look, I got to get these guys up, get them motivated, keep their heads together? How was that for you?
Yeah, it's probably been the biggest learning lesson I've ever had as a coach, and it's an invaluable one, and one that I hope I never have to go through again. But it is something that happened, and you learn a lot about yourself. You also learn a lot about the people around you, and who's there to support you in the tough times, and who kind of jumped ship too. Like, I think our kids realize that. Like, we've got a lot of great alumni and supporters at this school, but I think our kids also took note of some of the people that maybe, when things didn't go so well, all of a sudden had an opinion or a little bit of doubt in the program or the players in the program. So I think I leaned on a lot of the people that were closest to me. And I think just believing that you're doing the right thing and you're working as hard as you can every single day and trying to put the kids in the best. Sometimes we don't have all the answers as coaches, but I think if you, at the end of the day, can say that you're doing everything you can and working really hard and doing your best to give them a chance for success, that's all you can really ask of yourself. And I think we learned a lot through the process, and we're still learning now, but it's nice to kind of finally come out of it. But it was definitely a challenge, and as much as you want to be confident in your abilities as a coach, there are definitely times where self-doubt does creep in. And, for me, I have about an hour commute every day from the rink. And so when you're leaving the rink after, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 losses in a row, that commute becomes a lot longer and a lot more questioning goes on. But you again, it builds character and you become a little bit more resilient. And you also get pretty creative with making adjustments and trying to tweak things. When things are going well and you're maintaining kind of the status quo of achieving the results that you have the standard of and that the school has the standard of and the alumni has that expectation. When you're achieving those things, it's easy to kind of get caught in the rut of just doing the same stuff over and over. So when things don't go your way, you're forced to change and adapt and find creative solutions to how to bring about a positive change. And we tried a lot of different things over the first few weeks. And
I think we played all 4 goalies by that point.
We did everything. And, we tried fun practices and hard practices and meetings and less meetings and, fun team outings and less team out. Like we tried everything, and it was no perfect combination. It just, the kids started getting the results, and, things have been going in the right direction since.
So here's where the good stuff comes up. You guys go up to Colchester, you pump them for 9 goals. And the story within the story of the game, of course, is last year, Matt gets his first collegiate start against St. Mike's, doesn't have his best night, gives up 4 goals, gets yanked. We end up salvaging a tie with them. He gets a start again, this time against Purple Knights up in Colchester, makes 26 saves. Again, he's got a nice cushion, which is great. But just talk about everything in the game. The offense, putting in some goals, confidence goes up. Matt's got to be feeling good, backstopping the team to a win.
Yeah, Maddie's a junior who didn't get a ton of opportunities his first 2 years. And for him, that's been a journey that it's been great to see him just kind of mature and continue to be a kind of a consummate professional. And got rewarded, up there, and kind of got us rolling in the second half, to be honest. And he's a fiery competitor. He may not be your prototypical 6'2", 6'3" butterfly style goalie, but he competes hard. He's an excellent teammate. He genuinely wants the team to succeed, whether he's in the net or not. And he's put a lot of work in. And, obviously being a goalie of a smaller stature, I'm sure he's dealt with a lot of people telling him what he can and can't do. So I think he's got this great little chip on his shoulder of trying to prove people wrong. And we just couldn't have been happier for Matty, to kind of bounce back against the team he struggled with last year. But more so than that, just, backstopping the team and kind of raising the team up on his shoulders. And he's been great ever since. He's really been kind of a spark for us here in the second half. So, and in terms of the goal scoring, we decided to put Foster with Carlson and Mikko on kind of a speedy line there, and they had a great game up there, and they've kind of led us offensively here in the second half, and all the guys just kind of getting that weight off their shoulders. Like as a team collectively, we were trying to get the monkey off our back, but I think a lot of guys struggled early on. And, they wanted to get the monkey off their back too and get their first goal, and guys are getting hat tricks. And again, confidence, like we had the crisis of confidence in the first half. And, then all of a sudden you start getting results, and the work that kids are putting in, they start seeing, it's like validating. Like I've been working on this and now I'm getting the results, whether it's points or wins or whatever. And that just kind of snowballs. And then it's like anything they shoot goes in.
And you guys are, again, you beat a Con College team that came off a win against San Regina a couple days before that. You put in 8 goals against Becker, 8 goals against Western New England. All of a sudden, you're a team that was struggling to score goals. You had a stretch where you'd average about 5-6 goals a game. Yeah,
and I mean, it's everybody. And I think that's one thing in the second half that's been so nice to see. It's every game, like different guys are stepping up and being relied on offensively. And if you look at it, it's like, Carlson has a hat trick, and then the next night Perron has 2, and then the next day Baker has 2, and then Phillip has a goal and 2 assists. Foster gets a hat trick. Mikko's in the mix. Like Hogan and Nicky, like it just all those guys. You have, our fourth line's been excellent and been an energy line and a positive line for us. But those top 9 guys on any given night, like it seems like one line's going off for 2-3 goals. So it's nice to have that depth, and I think there's some internal competition amongst those guys. Like, they all want to see the team succeed and everybody else succeed, but it's like, hey, they got one, now it's our turn to go get one. So that's become infectious, and it started in their preparation and practice, and sometimes too, like chemistry just happens. Like the Foster, Miko, Carlson line, we put them together and it was just instant chemistry. Their speed and their forechecking ability and how hungry they are on the puck. And then you look at another line like the Perron, Crivello, Baker line that we've tried together multiple times earlier and just never seemed to find success. They kind of seemed like oil and water at times, some of those guys. And then it's like we put them back together third time around, and for some reason this time, that chemistry's been developed a little bit, and they're playing really good hockey. So, it's nice to have a little bit of balance offensively, and on any given night, different guys can step up for you.
And during that stretch, we did have a couple milestones. We had J.B. Baker get his 100th career point. He's approaching his 100th career game. Hogan Davidson, Nick Mangone, two really, blood, sweat, and tears guys are going to block shots and do the little things. They get it on the score sheet here and there. But just talk about those milestones for those three kids in particular. And, we can talk about Vinny and those guys down the road. But JB with his 100 points coming back from the injury, and then Nicky and Hogan with their 100 games.
Yeah, I think for JB, we couldn't be happier for him. Like he's somebody that came into Nichols and was Rookie of the Year in the conference as a freshman. And I believe, back-to-back as a freshman, sophomore, 40-point-ish seasons, like I believe within, a couple points here or there, all-conference type player for 2 years. Struggled a little bit at the start of his junior year and then gets hurt with a really, really tough injury. And to be able to bounce back and put the work in the not only physically rehab, but kind of mentally reset and come in as a senior and be able to do what he's done. And we've used him in different spots than he's ever been used to. Like, when he was playing with Scotty and Maddie, his first couple of years, he was more the complimentary, like, banging banging rebounds on the power play and kind of be the benefactor of some nice passes. And now you look and JB's running the point on our power play. So he's more of the distributor. So he's taken on just a different role, but great leader. I don't know if he's had too many bad games, and he'll probably go down as one of the best ever, play here at Nichols.
He's over 100 points for his career. He's, I believe, 11th or 10th all time. He's over a point a game this season. So you're right, he's really found his touch again this year.
Yeah, he's been great, and being able to stick with it, those ups and downs, and mentally deal with it. We're very proud of him, and he deserves all the recognition he gets for sure.
Sure. And then again, real quickly, just a guy like Mangone wins Player of the Week. Again, heart and soul guy, picks up 4 points in a key series against Wentworth. And then Hogan Davidson hit 100 career games. Yeah,
those two have been, again, excellent. Like, they may not be 100-point scorers, but I think anybody who's seen larger sample size of Nichols hockey games definitely would have say they appreciate what those two bring every single night. And I think if you talk to their teammates, just the appreciation for what they bring in practice every single day too. Like, those two don't have off days, and they feed off each other, and they're best friends off the ice. And Hogan's obviously just the style of play he plays. I think any alumni or supporter of our program, outsider, would say Hogan's probably their favorite player just because of the grit and the sandpaper he brings and leadership qualities. And both those guys, we showed the team video constantly on how many block shots and how selfless these guys are and how they sacrifice, for the team. And again, and maybe not, it's not all about the offensive glory for them. But to see like Nicky get rewarded for Player of the Week and having four goals on the weekend of his 100th game, and you just see the respect that their teammates have for him and the staff has for him. So I've been very fortunate to get to work with those two guys. They've been as consistent as any player I've ever had, and they kill penalties for us, and they can play on the power play. They can produce a little bit. And they both, the one thing that stands out for both of them is just how they lead by example. Like, they don't really have off days or off workouts. They're just able to, the minute they're on the ice, whether it's for a skills session, practice, or a game, like, they're dialed in and they turn it on, and just competitors. They've been awesome.
And for the fans that love Hogan on the ice, he's also the quintessential student athlete. He's got like a 10.0 GPA, and he's going to be a neuroscientist when he graduates from here. So let's real quickly, the Wentworth weekend series. You guys take a win on Friday night at home. Hard-fought win. Lots of block shots towards the end. Guys giving up the body, making the sacrifice. And then Saturday, which is the first ever shootout win, which is in the format for the CC games this year. So let's first talk about Friday night's game. Guys like Dave Chevrier blocking pucks, just giving up their bodies at the end of the game to preserve that lead.
Yeah, again, I kind of mentioned before, like, it just seems like this season has had a lot of these defining moments where, hopefully we can look back and be like, hey, like, turning points. And it's not just one thing. Like, we talked about the the J shutout or going up to St. Mike's and getting that 9-2 win with Maddie. But that shift we had against Wentworth on Friday night where, it's a 6-on-4, they pull the goalie. It's been a back and forth battle. They're a very good hockey team, Wentworth. Like, they work hard and they have some elite level forwards. And I think we had 5 block shots on that shift, and guys are lying on the ice, and there's gloves and sticks everywhere. And that penalty kill, we're able to kill it off and get an empty netter. And, in my 10 years of coaching, that's one of the best shifts I've ever seen. And the fans are going crazy, and it just shows like how selfless these guys are and how committed they are to winning and what they're willing to do to put the team ahead of any of, their own successes, or look at their sacrificing their body left and right. So that was a huge one. And then
kind of stole a point from Wentworth the next day. You got the goal with the goalie on the bench late, and then shootout win.
Yeah, and it was really nice to see. To be honest, this is my 5th year at Nichols, and that might have been the first time we've tied a game up with the goalie pulled. We scored a few times with the goalie pulled when we were down 2. It feels like we've been on the other end of it a few more times. I know, like last year in the playoffs, like we've given up goals when the other teams pulled their goalie. So it was nice for us to be on the other side of that, and kind of in a game too where we didn't have our very best. And that's kind of the mark of a great team, is being able to get the results sometimes, even if you're not at your best. And so to be able to pull the goalie and score to tie it up, and then win in a shootout, which was the first one ever for our program, was again, you talk about defining moments. You hope that's one of them. And again, it just was able to keep it alive and keep the kind of that undefeated streak alive.
So that brings us just to this past weekend. Number 6 unit comes in, and this is a team we've got a little history with. Went up to their barn 2 years ago, won the conference championship. So they come down here, 6th in the country. Played them to a 3-3 tie. This is a game we had a couple leads. They came back late and tied it, we came back late and tied it.
Yep.
But ultimately, just you get some points out of it. What does it do for the confidence of the team now? You're rolling, you've won a bunch of games, but now you have a nationally ranked team come in that they may have outshot you, but you hung with them, you skated with them, and got some points.
Yeah, and I thought we played good hockey for the most part on Friday. Obviously, we knew they were going to be they're a high offense team. I think they're number 1 in the country in offense, and their power play's clicking around
5 goals a game.
Yeah, clicking around 30%. So we kind of knew we knew what to expect. Like, it was going to be a battle, and it wasn't going to be easy. And we prepared really hard that week of practice with some different systematic things and things like that. But the kids were very bought into the game plan, and it was about sticking with it. And we knew that there was going to be ebbs and flows in the game where it was, we might take it to them, but you're not going to go 6 periods against UNE without playing in your own zone a little bit too. So it was about kind of having that bend but don't break mentality at times. And we did get a lead at one point, and then we kind of that lead got vanquished in the 3rd period. And
very quickly, they strike quick.
Yeah, they do, and they can pile it on quick. So to be able to bounce back and have, again, like we talk a lot about resiliency throughout the season, like just that in game, like, hey, okay, now it's 3-2, but let's just stick with it. We don't have to get it back next shift, but don't deviate from what's been working and what's going to work for us. And, Justin ties it up late, and we're able to take it to overtime. And, you look at Justin Perron, his ability to score pretty clutch goals. He scored in the last minute against Conn College, game winner. Scored against Western New England, game winner with 40 seconds left in regulation. He gets the shootout winner in Wentworth, and then ties it up late against UNE. He seems to be developing, or just maybe naturally has a clutch gene where he scores some big goals for us late. So that was good, and I think it was just one of those things too where we'd had some good wins in the second half, but to be able to beat or hang with a top 10 opponent, again, you're just looking for those validation points like, hey, we're a good team. Like, we can do this against anybody as long as we execute.
We talked about the goaltending. We've used a couple of goalies this year. This is probably Brett Epps' best game of the season.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, his ceiling is so high, and his talent and his ability is something that everybody sees. And I think, again, for him, it's just been a search for consistency and a battle with confidence at times. But, we have the utmost faith in Brett. And I think you saw on Friday, like, how good he can be. He can steal you a game. Like, he's an elite level goaltender. And he went through some humbling things at the start of the year, like we all did. And I think his ability to let those things go and just focus on the very next day and prepare for the next opponent, regardless of how things have gone, is definitely admirable. And he got rewarded, and I think the team kind of built off of it.
So next day, you guys go up to Biddeford, and we talked about adversity throughout this podcast. You get hit with a lot early here. Your captain gets thrown out midway through the game for a spearing. You kill off a 5-minute power play that Uni has. I believe it was 5-on-3 for a couple seconds there.
I think it was like a full 2 minutes. It was 5-on-3 almost.
Sure. So you lose your captain. You get outshot 20-4 in the first period. You get out of it scoreless. And then the second period starts, you get down 2-0. So you're missing your captain. You're down 2-0. You call a timeout when you guys get a 5-on-4 5-minute power play. Excuse me.
Yep.
What do you tell the guys?
Well, we were kind of in panic mode. That game at times was a little bit of a gong show. Like, their crowd's into it. The refs were calling tons of penalties.
Which, coming off Friday's game where there was one on each
side.
side.
Right. The refs kind of inserted themselves into that game a little bit, and it kind of like led to a lot of like high tension, and the kids were on edge, and for both teams, and both coaches were in it. And Friday night's game was just so like one penalty aside. There was no chirping. There was no after the whistle tensions or anything like that, and everybody was just focused on their job, and it was a really good hockey game. Saturday was like the polar opposite. And on top of that, with Vinny getting kicked out, your first line center's kicked out in the first 5 minutes of the game. Now you're running makeshift lines, so it's a little bit more of a chaos on the bench and things like that. So that 5-minute power play, the first 3 minutes was complete pandemonium. Like, guys didn't know where they were going or who was going or what role they were playing because Philip I believe it was Philip or Baker, had gotten a little bit banged up from the hit that caused the 5-minute power play. We didn't have Vinny, who's been a staple on our power play for 4 years. Sure. So we kind of had like a makeshift, it was a gong show, for lack of a better word. And then after 3 minutes, we were finally able to get a whistle and call a timeout and just settle everybody down. And I think it was like Baker on the bench looked up at the coaches and he's like, nobody knows what they're doing on the power play right now. And I think my response was, well, neither do we. Like, we're not too sure either what's going on. But we were able to kind of settle them down and get them set up for an in-zone face-off and tell them, like, hey, we still have 2 full minutes regardless of a power play here. And I think I told them, like, hey, listen, if we get one on this power play, like I promised, we're gonna win this hockey game. And maybe something I just said to settle them down a little bit. But drop the puck, and 3 seconds later, off the face-off, Hogan wins it. We go Perry over to Baker, and he one-times the puck, and now it's 2-1, and we're rolling.
Baker comes back a few minutes later, gets another, I believe it was 2:09. The goals for apart, so Baker ties it. And then right before the period ends, Philippe gets the first of his 2 goals. And now all of a sudden, you guys go from down 2-0, missing your captain, to up 3-2 after 2.
Yeah, crazy how it turns like that again in games like that where there's going to be power plays for both sides, and the refs want to kind of put their stamp on the game too. And it's like, hey, listen, each team's going to get 6 or 7 power plays. You just got to execute when you get yours. And obviously getting the kill in the first period was huge. And then I think we had 4 power play goals. But not only like it's a different mindset and a different emotion in the locker room. You might come back and tie it up 2-2, and then that next goal is going to kind of swing things. But to get that one late and really kind of put them on their heels, like you could just feel it in the locker room. Like the guys were starting to say, like anytime you go up to UNE, you know it's going to be a battle. So to kind of put ourselves in the position to have a 1-goal lead going into the third period and the fashion in which we did it, it was like, I think the guys were like, holy, we're going to do this. Let's buckle down here and, finish the job.
Sure. So you guys are up late. You end up 5-3. UNE puts the goalie on the bench. I'm sorry, it's 4-2.
Yep.
They've got the goalie on the bench. They put one in. It's 4-3. Goalie's on the bench again. Are you having any thoughts in the back of your head like, geez, I've seen this before?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Not again.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it can never be easy against UNE. Like, I think it was last year or the year before, we had a 2-goal lead. We were safe. Things were good. It was at home. And then they called us for 2 penalties on the same play, and then all of a sudden it was a 6-on-3 with like a minute and a half left. And here you are thinking, we got a 2-goal cushion with less than 2 minutes left. We're going to cruise to a victory. That time they scored 1, and we were able to hold on. And it just seemed like no matter what, you just know UNE and their coach and all their players, like they're not going to let you off that easy. Nothing comes easy against those guys. So they get one late, and it's like, oh man, here we go. And just knowing how offensive they are and how many guys they have who can put the puck in the back of the net, you're probably holding your breath a little bit more than against some other teams. So I was definitely relieved to see that empty netter go in and it not come down to the final seconds.
So that brings us to where we are now. We went from 0-9-0 to 8-11-2, 5-7-2 in conference. Maybe some people look at that and say it's not fantastic, but it's where you started. and where you've come from since that start. But the last 9 games, you're 7-0-2. You picked up points in 9 straight games. Really opposite seasons if you look at
For
it
sure.
in two sides there. The bus ride home after the game and then practice this week. Have you noticed a lot of up-tempo, kids' mentalities different, quicker practices, just the mentality teams during this stretch?
Yeah, I think they're having fun, right? Like we haven't really deviated a lot from what we've been successful with here. The structure and the routine has been pretty similar a week to week, and I think the one just very fascinating aspect about this group and this season's journey is outside of that one practice I was talking about, that crazy practice we had after the Boston Landing. If you would have come to a practice in the first half and seen the enthusiasm and the effort level and the compete level that our kids brought to every practice, you would have never known that that was a team that had lost 7, 8, 9 in a row. And I think the same could be said in the second half. If you came to one of our practices now, I think you would see a compete level and an attention to detail and a work ethic that you wouldn't think, hey, this team's won, or hasn't lost in 9. I think you still see like that hunger. And I think from where we've been, it almost makes the kids more hungry. Like they've been in the absolute cellar of like, they've felt the worst any team could ever feel. I can guarantee you that. And I think the coaches are in the same boat. And I think because we went through that experience together and we felt those things, the hunger is there to make sure that that doesn't happen again. And so I think they just treat every day like it's what a great opportunity. And we've come so far, and I think it's been important to recognize and let them know and just allow ourselves to say, hey, like we're not done yet and we're still very hungry. But what we've accomplished and to be able to turn this season around the way the kids have, they should be very proud. And I know the staff's very proud of them.
Sure. And you mentioned a lot about the character of the student athletes already and just what they've gone through this year and how they've rallied back. But wins like this past weekend, when you go to a barn like Uni, which has it's brand new and it's fancy and it's got nice scoreboards and the lights go out and they've got a whole thing going on up there. How much more rewarding is it for our student athletes when, we play at a great rink in Levy Rink and it's a public rink and Chris Lacey does a great job over there, but you've got Endicott got their own flashy barn and Uni has their own flashy barn. We don't sell our program necessarily on those things. We sell them on hard work, the brotherhood, and just winning.
Yeah, and I think it is a little sweeter when you go on the road against some of those teams, and I think they know that, like they're going to get our very best because of that. But again, I can't say enough about like especially the seniors, but every kid on that team. Like it is a team that has like a lot of guts and a lot of character and resiliency to kind of come through that. I think the experience we went through and the pressure that was felt by a lot of people, like I think that would break a lot of teams. So I think it is a testament to our leadership group, our captains, but every kid on that team to have the ability to stay as positive as you can in that situation and like to continue to believe in each other. Like there wasn't finger pointing or like no kids became cancers. So the buy-in was just exceptional. And I think, when you go through, when you taste that bitterness of the defeats that we went through, and we lost some heartbreaking games. Like we've lost three games in overtime, all in under a minute left. One with 0.01 seconds. Like some of the losses we've taken were heartbreaking. So to feel that and feel that level of pain or just disappointment, now when you're on the other side of it, it tastes a little bit sweeter, and I think it's more appreciated. And, I think the kids are grateful. Like, when you win all the time and it comes easy, it's still awesome. But like to go through what we went through and now get those feelings and have those bus rides home, they are just a little bit more sweet. And I think you just feel like we deserve this. Sure. Like we've earned this.
And let's talk a little about just on your end, resetting coaching mentality and goals for the program. I'm sure there was a point where, again, you guys are winless. You're thinking, geez, let's just get a couple wins, get in the playoffs here and see what we can do. Now you're battling for home ice advantage, which probably a month ago wasn't even on the radar.
Yeah, I mean, Pete, you know me well enough. Like I rarely look at standings. I don't do a lot of long-term goals. I think every year is its own journey and its own path. And again, this being my 5th year at Nichols, I've been able to have a lot of different experiences. Like, my first year, the goal was to be top 10 in the, like you have these not unattainable goals, but these lofty goals. And, then you kind of realize how difficult it is to win championships. And not that that changes your goal, but, my first year we won 10 in a row. And then we lost in the second round of playoffs. The next year, I think we were a point out of first place, and we lost in, again, the second round of playoffs. And then, my third year, we finished fifth, and everybody was like, what's going on? Like, you guys are getting worse. And then we win 3 games on the road in the playoffs, and we were playing our best hockey at the right time, and everybody says that's the greatest season in program history. And you're a goal away from the Frozen Four. And then last year, you get home ice, and you battle hard for that, and you lose in the first round. So we just really try to impress upon the players and the staff that as long as we're preparing to be 1-0 in our next game and we're giving ourselves a chance to play in the playoffs, that's really the only kind of season prepping or planning that we do. And then hopefully play your best hockey at the right time, which seems to be coming together for us.
Sure, which has been fantastic. And just real quickly now, as you approach the playoffs, you talked about the championship 2 years ago. You've got some veterans on this team. I imagine they're not really stressed about, at this point, where they finish, because having been on that season 2 years ago, going on the road, winning 3 games, it's not necessarily where they're playing, it's how they're playing at that moment. So just as you prepare for the playoffs, what's it like knowing that there's players in that locker room that have been through the grind before, have been through, hey, it doesn't matter where we play, it doesn't matter how long the bus ride is, we can win, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I think, our conference is so deep and so hard that, like, whether you have to go on the road or you get a home game, like, you have to beat, unless you're the 1-2 seed. That, to be honest, I think in the 3 years of the CCC being in existence, I don't think the number 1 or 2 seed have won the playoff tournament.
There's been plenty of upsets.
So I think it just goes to show you, like, at the end of the day, you got to beat 3 good teams. Like, you got to beat good teams to win a championship, and you're probably going to have to do that on the road at some point. And I think our kids just know that, like, hey, whether it's UNE or Salve or Curry or Endicott or Wentworth or whoever, like, every game's going to be hard, and we're preparing every single day, and every game throughout the season is an opportunity to prepare to be 1-0 in a playoff game. Sure. Because that's, when you get to that, you have to win or the season's over. So
sure. And just real quick as we wrap this podcast up, this is your 5th year here. You've put your mark on this program. These are all your kids. Mm-hmm. You've recruited them all. They've all come in. How has the program changed since you arrived here with just the student athletes you've brought in and your philosophies and the mentality?
Yeah, I mean, I had a great, the guy who was before me, Kevin Swallow up at UNE, he did such a great job recruiting excellent players here and really establishing Nichols as one of the top Division III programs, or at least up there, like in the mix, that it made recruiting maybe a little bit easier. It made it more of a destination. Everybody wants to go to a school that has a history of championships and competitive success, and Kevin put us in a great spot to do that. And, obviously with my background, I've kind of been all over the place. I'm a Western Canadian guy who's spent a lot of time in the Midwest and, had some connections and spend time over in Europe. So I think if you looked at our roster on paper, the one thing you would probably most definitely notice is we've got some cultural diversity, on there. We've got some Canadians and some French Canadians, kids from all over the U.S. We got a lot of different states represented, and we have some kids from Sweden and the Czech Republic and Germany. So it's a fun group. It's a very diverse group with some very, very strong personalities. It's always kind of been my philosophy as a coach I'd rather have a group of kids that you have to rein in because they're so fiery and so competitive and they have such strong personalities that at times that's going to kind of maybe bubble over the line. I'd rather have that type of kid and that type of team than a group of players or student athletes that you have to kick in the butt to work hard and you got to motivate all the time. And maybe they're good students and they look the part, but they don't have a lot of sandpaper to them. And I think if you looked at our roster and you came into our locker room, like, it is just a very kind of chaotic bunch at times. Like, there's just so many different personalities and how they're able to mesh that together, and just it's just a lot of fun. Like, I enjoy being at the rink with those guys, and our staff's kind of the same way. I think you just got a lot of passionate people who really care and are really invested, and sometimes it leads to some disagreements and some clashes of personalities, but I think that's what makes it fun, and that's what makes brothers, and why they're such good teammates is they are so different. It's not 27 guys from the same state and the same background and kind of bringing the same thing. You got just such a diverse group, and every kid brings something different on the ice, but every kid also brings something different to the team and the culture. And I think that is what makes it fun and makes it a challenge too.
Sure. And one of the most interesting things from 2 years ago, the championship season, was that our roster did not have a single student athlete from Massachusetts on it. We were littered with the United States and Sweden and a couple Canadians in there. How much fun is it for you to be able to incorporate a mix of kids, bring some kids from Sweden over and bring some Canadian kids over, and just selling Nichols and why it's the place to be for them?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I mean, I think they have no preconceived notions. Like, everything's new, and they appreciate everything, and they see the campus and the facilities, and and how supported we are as a department and as a program, and they're just very grateful for the opportunity to get to play college hockey. And what a great region to do it in New England. And we're very excited. We've got our first 3 Massachusetts kids here, all as freshmen, which is nice to add that. Being in Massachusetts, I think it's important that we have a footprint here. So again, they all just bring, and I think they learn a lot from each other. Like, I think that's part of this process is these kids are here for 4 years, and they're here to develop and become better students, and they're here to develop and become better hockey players, but they're also here too to become better men and better people, and for them to get the experience of playing with guys from other cultural backgrounds. And we have 5 or 6 guys where English is their second language, so to have to collaborate and work together and be teammates with guys that aren't the same as you, I mean, that's how you grow as a person. And I think as a coach, that's something we see too. Like, as a coaching staff, we have to grow and learn a lot when you're dealing with a player who English is a second language, or he was raised in a European background. Like, these kids respond differently. And so the challenge for us is to learn what, works best for them. And we tell them all the time, like, everybody's going to be treated fairly, but not equally. They're all different people and different athletes, and they respond to different things. But I think that's been one of the most fun parts and something that I enjoy the most is just getting to work with such a diverse group of kids.
Sure. And at various times you've had, Swede, a U.S. kid and a Canadian kid on the same offensive line.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a melting pot of kids there.
Absolutely.
Lastly, just what do you want to tell us about Nichols as far as the best part of your day, the best part of being the coach at Nichols and the alumni and the staff, and just your overall thoughts on just being the Nichols coach and how special it is and what gets you excited to go to work every day?
Yeah, I mean, it's truly been a blessing the past 4.5 years since I've been here. The support that we've received and that I've received from, everybody in the department, and then our alumni and the administration here at the school, just the institution as a whole, it does feel like just a very tight-knit community and family. The amount of communication I have with former players that have played here or alumni, and what the program still means to them and what it meant to them while they were here, it's overwhelming. And it's a testament to the investment that the people have and just the people that are here. So I've enjoyed it, 4.5 years, and I'm very grateful to be here. And the best part of my day is obviously at the end of the day, I'm a hockey coach, and that's what kind of gets me going, and that's what I'm passionate about. And I enjoy being around the staff and the players every day. And I think the best part of my day is just going to the rink and getting to be around those guys and, share some laughs and stories. And I think that's probably something that we try to impress upon our players a lot. And I think it's important as a staff and from me as a coach to recognize that we're going to remember a lot of the wins, and we're going to remember the losses, and those things are important, and the championships are important, and the everyday practice preparation. But I think just the memories that you're creating is something that those are lifelong memories. I don't think we tell the kids all the time, like, you're probably not going to remember whether you got 22 points or 15 points, and whether you played on the power play or you played on the third line. Like, you're probably not going to remember those things 15, 20 years from now when you're at a reunion or you're having beers together. But you are going to remember the memories and the get-togethers and the social functions and the work you put into it. And, I think that's one thing that we're most proud of is, regardless of how this season plays out and how it finishes, and obviously we want to end it the right way, and I think there would be no more fitting way to end it with a championship and a run into the NCAAs. But even if that were to not happen, I think our kids will look back, and the experience of going through what they went through early on and how they've been able to stick with it and turn it around, like, not only is that a good lesson for sports and athletics, but that's a good life lesson. Like, no matter how bad things may seem, like there's always an opportunity to kind of turn it around, and it's not going to happen overnight. It takes hours and hours and days and weeks of commitment and work ethic to kind of be able to turn it around. So this season's been quite a journey. It's something that we probably wouldn't have scripted this way, but it's been a lot of fun and learned a lot of lessons too.
What you just said sparked one more question for me.
Sure.
And if you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to. But the championship at UNE 2 years ago, you wrote something on the whiteboard in the locker room for the boys to see when they come in, and you mentioned memories and things like that, winning championships. Do you want to just talk about that?
Yeah, I think it was win today and we walk together forever. Yeah, I mean, I think these guys are, that championship team, like that'll be a season that I never forget. And I think those guys will always remember that. And I think, just again, it was before I even came, the whole brothers and brotherhood and how important that was to our program and our culture. And it's something that we work really hard to maintain. And, I still watch the YouTube videos of that game and that journey that we went through as a team. And I think those type of experiences for them, that gets passed down year to year. And I know our younger guys, our freshmen and sophomores who haven't been a part of that. I can guarantee it when they're hanging out with some of the older guys and the older guys are telling the story from that year. Like that's part of a motivating factor for those younger guys. Like, wow, that sounds awesome. And they see the videos and they see the rings and they hear the stories about that. And part of that is that motivates them. They want to be the next generation of guys to get to do that. They want to make their own, write their own story. And, we talked a lot when we went through all the crap we went through here is, every season is like a story. It's like a book. And we wrote the first half of our book, we wrote it, and it was not a good one. It was a pretty sad story, but we would tell them every day, like, you guys are the authors of this thing. Every day you're writing pages in that book, and how it finishes and how it ends, we get to dictate that. And I think just day to day, just focusing on that really kind of helped us get through it. It's just focusing on every day we're writing our story. So how we want it to end is up to us, and hopefully it ends up a good one.
4 games left in the regular season. The playoffs begin on Wednesday, February 26th. Parker Burgess, this has been a lot of fun. Thanks for joining us.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Pete.